known as the Hathors, Hathors. Some of you can roll your eyes. I don't care. I've given up the eye rollers these days. I find them tedious. So the Hathors are really in consciousness and in IQ. They certainly are big brothers and sisters for this particular planet. And Tom was a psychotherapist, actually has become probably one of the first and foremost sound healers, perhaps now globally in the world. And the Hathors keep bringing us updates on their concern about how we're running our own lives. And then they'll bring messages as to how to lift above it. And they bring, for Tom, because he's a percussionist, they bring sound healing. So if this kind of information draws you at all, I invite you to Google Tom Kenyon, Kenyon. That's Kenyon, Tom Kenyon. His book, The Hathors, one of the most profound books I've ever read. It was really super. But here's Tom's it was a very long email that they sent out on earlier in March. It was March 8th. But I'm just going to read you a couple of little short paragraphs. And this is Tom's take on what the Hathors were actually communicating to him for us in that communication. There are many fences that would separate us from the grace of restoration. Some of these fences are social conventions and beliefs. Some are a result of social stress created by the current rise of political polarization. Some are hidden in the cloak of religious or spiritual dogma, and some of them are internal inhibitors that keep us from receiving the grace of restoration that flows from our own inner natures. Part of the task for receiving true restoration is to find our way around those external and internal fences that have been erected to separate us from the grace of renewal. There are indeed many ways to find true restoration. The latest Hathor sound meditation is just one of them. If it resonates with you, I think you will be blessed by its effectiveness, says Tom Kenyon. And if you choose some other way, it does not matter, so long as you find some means to psycho-spiritually restore yourself in these increasingly challenging times. And he concludes with, whatever path to restoration you take, may it be swift, and may it be a blessing to you, your loved ones, and to all sentient beings. Now I'm going to go back over this because paragraph 1 has a whole lot of information that's packed in there. First sentence, there are many fences that would separate you from the grace of your own restoration. Your social conventions and beliefs, that's a huge fence. And anything, I'm telling you, I've been harping on this for as long as I've been on this station, and then some. Anything that causes a sense of separation, you are crazy to get yourself tangled in it. I went back these past few days to pick up a book. I'd forgotten. It was one of my favorite books. And I'll tell you the title in a second, but I want to tell you a little thing that they were saying. Be careful of the split between matter and spirit. There is no split. Again, it's kind of one of these hidden fences. Matter is spirit. It's all one. There's only one. So it goes on in this first paragraph. So we've got the social conventions and beliefs. And look, it's social convention. It's all around us. It could look something like this. My daddy makes more money than your daddy. I am so much better than you. Matter of fact, before my sister left today, we were kind of commenting on that. I have a better handbag than you. I go to a better hairdresser than you. I mean, it's insane what causes these subtle separations. And some of these separations are the result of social stress created by the current rise of political polarization. I have a friend who is a natural healer up in New York State. And a couple of weeks ago, a mother brought their, I want to say maybe 19-year-old daughter to see my friend, the healer. The daughter was suffering from such a heinous dose of anxiety. It was mind-boggling. Well, what is this kid concerned about? She's still hung up on the polarization of November and the political upheaval. This is a child. Now, who's feeding this? She can't do her schoolwork. She can't do her life. She's totally twisted in a knot. So the dangers of this kind of polarization, I think the parents who were probably glibly just taking sides one way or another as every next debate came on, did not recognize the damage and the danger that was now created in someone they love very much. And all these kids, they're talking about, he's going to push the button. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, he doesn't even own a sewing box. Leave him alone. There's no buttons allowed. So you want to be so careful of polarization. Next, they're hidden in the cloak of religious or spiritual dogma. This is so insidious. I really do find it rather humorous. I had to go a couple of weeks ago to a dentist. Now, many of you are horrified that I would even admit that I should go to a dentist because they've not been on my to-do list for many, many years because I believe I'm in charge of my body and I have to take good care of it. So I do my very best. Well, there was such a sense, the air of polarization in this particular dentist office that I had been directed to by a well-meaning person. It was so dense and so thick that I actually couldn't go back. I simply couldn't. Because it seems that their leader, they found him, and I'm always thinking, I didn't know he was lost. And what was happening, which you can, once you're so calm and so centered, you can see the division, and you are not really one of them because of the polarization of their spiritual dogma. I can't even call it spiritual dogma. Spiritual is spiritual. It's all spiritual. It's more religious dogma. So with any polarization, be careful because you can't imagine that what's happened here, and I think this is a very good graphic of it. Imagine, see your whole body. Now, over the centuries, your fingers have been detached, arms have been detached, toes and feet are detached, legs are detached, head is detached, and all you're left is this torso that actually can't even think straight. And this grace of restoration actually magnetizes all of the missing parts of you to be restored, to come on back in. Because I don't care. I will leave this incarnation going, we are to be one back in our body again and recognize our oneness. And I know I am in the minority. I am 1% of the entire population that would even venture not only to think this way, but then attempt to really practice it, know it, and be it. So it's no small task, but I'm tired of having missing pieces, parts of me floating around out in cyberspace because the truth is you can't function with a sense of the magnitude and the majesty which you actually are. And so it is the time to be all of that majesty again. So it is a grace, though. I know it's a grace, and I'm telling you, grace is earned. It's not just handed out indiscriminately. You earn grace, and it's really by the good deeds we do. It's that gentle smile to somebody who's down. It's that reaching in your pocket to give your last nickel to somebody that needs it more than you do. It's that giving somebody a hug when it's the last thing you want to do. And this is like filling up your grace bank. So look, if spring is that whole sense of rebirth and renewal, it's you they're talking about. Nature herself is showing you this is your renewal time. Renew you. Become new again. Sorry, I can't really tell you born again because that sort of leads into a religious thing. But new, N-E-W, you again. New you again. Which, of course, means, now I'll have to harp on you about your feng shui. What the heck is it that you need to be throwing out? On the way to this station today, no joke, I took a bag to Goodwill. It's like, no, done. Been there, got that. So it is a rebirthing. It is that resurrection. Who's going to be resurrected other than you? Nobody. And you're not allowed to resurrect anybody else either. You got to just do you in this case. I'm also very, very thoroughly understanding if I'll just do me, the world is perfectly fine. Probably, I bet you, even if I don't do me, the world's still fine. But I choose to accumulate that grace for my sense of the spiral expansion. I'm into expansion. I need big houses. I need big ideas. I need a big space, a big, wonderful space for more breath, spelled with a capital B. That breath is the sacred breath. And that's why you need to be outside. And, of course, springtime, especially in the Northeast, I know now, get out, take a walk in the woods, take a walk by the pond. You gotta restore the lungs. Even though it's liver season, you gotta restore the lungs. So that's for Tom Kenyon. If anybody has any questions about Tom, he's very, very generous with his work. If you go into his website, well, first of all, everything is archived. Much, much material, but many soundtracks from the Hathors. And when I was, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was living in Vero Beach, and I was having an experience, a very funny experience, with welcoming angels into my space. And the place that I lived in happened to have this, like a 25-foot ceiling, elevated. It was like almost looked like a church inside. And it was just large and wonderful. And it was right at the time when I was really tuning into Tom Kenyon and the Hathor material. And I was reading the Hathor book and sitting there and just thinking, oh, I wish they would just come here. I want to see them. I want to feel them. I want to know them. And you can't make this stuff up. The energy in the room changed. Now, I've been told that these beings actually are about 15 feet tall. I could feel them. I couldn't exactly see them, but the sense was a presence had changed. The energy field had changed. And it was just sacred. And it was a sense of reverence and a sense of, why don't we just stay in this atmosphere? And yet it's hard to cultivate it because next moment you crash land energetically, just energetically. Now, I will say this, the more fastidious I am about better and better food choices, it's easier to tap into these larger expressions of energy of which we are a part. They're not different. I am of the Hathors. They are of me. And I think that's what helped draw their presence, because there's no separation. They and I are one. You and them are one. the same as you are one with the political people